would you handle your own mother?
You don't want to give people advice when they were not asking for it. And that's really hard for some people to do, right? Like because you did the best you could with the resources you had back
Mm-hmm.
when you were raising a child. And because you did something a certain way doesn't mean it was the right way, doesn't mean it was the wrong way. It was just the way that you did it at the time because that's what worked for you. On the idea that we all run these internal programs that are made up of our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, our habits. And so most of these operate beneath the surface or like the conscious awareness. And so these programs actually shape how we perceive the world, how we communicate, how we respond to different situations.
Hello, and thank you for joining me on another journey on the healing train. If we haven't met yet, I'm Rania, your host. I create this space for topics we need to discuss. Sometimes they're uncomfortable, many times it's what you need to hear. Are you ready for a new train ride with me? Hop on, take a seat, and let's heal together. Join me in welcoming today's guest, Brittany Freeman, founder of Be Free Mindset. She is a seasoned life strategist, master neurolinguistic programming practitioner, and mindset coach. She supports action takers in maintaining a high level of clarity, confidence, motivation, productivity, and enhanced self communication. She guides clients through navigating big life changes and personal challenges by honoring the duality of balance, control, and harmony in life, while providing them with the tools they require to self regulate and sustain a resilient mindset. With a rich blend of teaching experience, scientific acumen, and a holistic approach to mindset mentorship, Brittany assists clients in helping them overcome negative emotions, dispel disempowering beliefs, and rewire subconscious thought patterns that are keeping them stuck. Her methods champion self awareness and a deep focus on the mind body connection, which in turn enables individuals to lead passion fueled and purpose filled lives, all while safeguarding against stress and burnout. Brittany, I am so excited for you to be on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, we're going to be talking about a very important subject today, okay? Motherhood. And
Yeah.
you being a new mom, fairly new, you are also a neurolinguistic practitioner and you have your own business and you post your stuff. And I came across one of your posts and I loved it to be the start of our episode. So if you don't mind, I'm going to begin by reading what you wrote. Okay?
Sounds good. Yeah.
You know more than you think, inherently, intuitively, deeply. So if you feel your baby needs contact naps, co-sleeping, to on-demand feed, to wait on sleeping, sleep training, or whatever else, trust that. Put the phone down. Scrap the advice from everyone looking to give it to you. Exit out of all of the Reddit page tabs on your browser and tune in. Tune into your body. Tune into your baby, to your own personal situation and environment. Watch for patterns, developmental leaps, milestones, attachment styles. Consider how they learn to regulate and communicate. Learn your baby. Cater to them, not the algorithm. The internet and your Aunt Betty will always be there to tell you how and what you should be doing. Mamas, you likely spend a lot of time with your babies to know what they need. If you needed the reminder that you know best, this is it. Mm, wow. Let's begin from here, Brittany, okay? Because that was a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Children or babies, okay, because we're talking about babies now, they don't come with a manual.
No. We wish they did.
And neither does parenting. Okay. Although some may beg to differ and believe that there are books out there that were written in the past few decades and can be used as their holy book. But we all know that's not true. Let's talk about your personal experience. What did you expect motherhood to be like before,
Mm.
obviously? And what has surprised you the most since becoming a mom?
That's a good question. So I guess in terms of what I anticipated, I think I thought it was going to be, consuming, like all encompassing in terms of my time and energy. And I think as women, like we do somewhat prepare ourselves for this being a full time role, really. Like it is that expectation that we have. But I also think like society has conditioned us to expect that we will have a lot on our plates, right? When we have children, like it's such a new experience and there's so many challenges like every step of the way. So I think what surprised me the most was the strain that it puts on your relationship because you are taking care of another human being as well as yourself. And so another person and having that relationship kind of continue to flourish and whatnot during such a pivotal time, that was something that was surprising to me in terms of becoming a new mom and that being an element that I didn't realize was going to kind of come into play. And I think it's more of just like maybe a little bit of like an underlying resentment with my partner, being able to have alone time and, if he's going to work and he's taking the train and he's, got control over his time during the day, even if he's working. And I know that that sounds crazy, right? Like
Mhm.
he's going to work, he's working, he's doing things, but it's still, you still have control over the day. You can run out and grab lunch. You can do, the things that you want to do somewhat. Whereas I did feel like that was difficult for me, right? And so that was a challenge in the beginning. I quite literally didn't have time to like eat, go to the bathroom, like do things for myself until I figured out like the rhythm of things. And so because I was constantly nursing and I had no time to myself and the lack of sleep, like there was this duality of like really loving the quality time with my baby. Of course, like I loved every second of it, but also really yearning for some time and space, and having to be okay with the fact that I wasn't going to get that for a little bit, right? And coming to that compromise with myself. So it did come into play with my relationship, but communication was the biggest element that helped with that, right? So I think that was actually kind of surprising to me. Like you expect all the other things with the baby itself, but you don't really prepare yourself for the things externally too that are all still in your environment, still the socializing and the partnerships and the people that you're interacting with. So that was interesting.
Well, I also would say, depending on the stage in life where you're at, I
Mm.
mean, I don't want to say your age because it's not necessarily to do with age, but your experience, your life experience prepares you. You've seen other friends of yours that have been through it, so you've learned a few things from them. So the younger you are, the the crowd that you are around, the people that you know probably haven't experienced those things yet, so you don't know what to expect. But the
Mm.
older you are and the dynamic is different, everything changes, right?
Yeah, and that does come into play. I do remember friends saying that like you will hate each other for a little while, which sounds so crazy, right? You're like, well, okay, that's like a little extreme, like, but they're like, no, if you don't like have these moments where you literally want to rip each other's head off, like you're not going through the motions that you should be. And so when we were in that space and it's like ups and down, right? Because you're like a really happy time and it's great and everything's like the baby's born and you're like in that newborn bubble, and then it's slowly like, okay, somebody's going back to work and somebody's on their own, and you're trying to manage schedules and some routine, and if you're a type A type of person, that becomes really difficult because you don't have the same control, and you don't have the same control over your time and your energy and your sleep hormones, sleep deprivation. So yeah, so my friends definitely had said, all of them who had currently have children or have had children, were mentioning that element to prioritize your relationship as well, which I will say is very important in the communication element too.
Probably from what you're saying, it was the biggest challenge for you. That's what it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like, and perhaps for many, for
Yeah.
many. Mm,
Yeah, one of the biggest for
your
sure.
life.
And I think also I'll say like the person that you choose is really important. And I know that you work with a lot of people who, are really trying to find that partnership and that person who is,
Mm.
going to be balanced and support you and, be able to communicate well. And all of these things are things that you want, respect and patience and that sort of thing in a relationship. And so choosing your partner is a very key element before you have children. I will say that.
Well, a pivot a little bit from our conversation here about motherhood, now that you've mentioned it. In my personal experience, I can tell you when you have discussions with your partner prior to baby time is
Hmm.
one thing. And when it actually happens is another. So I 100% agree with you that you need to choose the correct partner that you are both on the same page. You see
Right.
things, similarly, and you have the same dreams and hopes and way of parenting.
Mm.
Fortunately, some of these discussions aren't happening in the early stages of relationships for you to get to know your partner on that level. And another one is perhaps you're in fantasy world and you think everything is going to be okay and you think that your partner is going to go along with you because they tell you that much, right? Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, don't worry, we're cool. Yeah, we see things the same way. But then when it really does happen, you do see the differences. You do realize that the way you want to raise your child can be quite different from the way your partner wants to raise their child, and there are influences for that. Do you want to talk about that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's also partly how you're raised, right? Like if you are raised in a specific way, you may think certain things need to be done a certain way, right? Your parenting style, the modern way of parenting versus, the older generation type of parenting. And things have changed so drastically that I tend to err too on the side of like bringing in science or like things that actually back up what is important or what is something that we can look into. Of course, I'm still in the sense looking at our intuition, being able to kind of talk to someone and see, okay, where can we compromise with each other, right? One person may say, oh, I have a very strict parenting style and like this is the way that I was raised, and I got smacked as a child, or I got like these things were done and I was okay. I turned out okay. That's fine that that happened, but is this going to affect the relationship and the way that you parent your child now in a different way? And how can you do things in a different way that actually serves both, the child, yourself, the family as a whole? Like you said, having the conversation before is key. I think the value system is also really important too, right? Your values need to be aligned. If your values are aligned, that is like core, that's the core of who you are. So it's very
Mhm.
hard to change someone in terms of their values and what they see as important. And so even a discussion on that can help you to see where someone's priorities lie, or what they value or their belief system, and kind of have that open conversation and communication about those things, because you're not going to see eye to eye on everything. I mean, absolutely not, but I think there's the ability to be flexible and compromise in situations, especially when it comes to the well-being of a child. And most parents want the best for their children generally, right? So they will do whatever needs to be done in order to make that a priority.
Advice from people and advice from online, the external factors. There's so much of it right
Mm-hmm.
now, right? Like we said before, books, experts that are talking about it. How do you navigate all that noise? Let's talk about how do you get to the point where you really trust your own instincts and
Mm-hmm.
learn your baby, as you said.
Yeah, it takes time, right? So I mean, you have like a new little human joining your world. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that you can, it takes time to kind of see what they're doing and what their kind of scheduling is like and how they interact with you and their characteristics. And there's so little, right? So they can't communicate with you the same way. Firstly, everybody's experience is different and no two babies are the same, right? so
Mhm.
so you'd be surprised how quickly, like after maybe 4 to 6 weeks of being with your baby, you actually start to understand all of their cues, right? Like they're hemming and hawing and you're like, oh, I didn't know what that meant before, but now I'm like, I know that this is something that they're trying to tell me. And so that develops over time. This makes me think of like we used to go out in the first couple months when he was born, and he was born in late November. So by the time Christmas came around and New Year's, we were just like really going out, going to family events. And he was still like, only 6 to 8 weeks old at that point. And he'd cry or he'd fuss or whatever. And people will be like, oh, yeah, he's probably hungry. Or like, you should do this. He's definitely like, this is happening. And I'm like, okay, like neither you nor I actually know if that's something that is happening, but there's a lot of assumptions that are made. And I know that people are trying to help. But
But
you
it can
also
be
really need to,
frustrating too, Brittany,
it
right? It's
can be,
especially when it's
it,
happening in the moment. Your baby's crying and you don't know what to do, and then you have this advice of people telling you, "Why don't you check this? Well, maybe he needs this. Maybe
exactly.
it's like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
can you let
It's,
me be the parent?"
it's irritating, right? Because your family, I mean, as much as they want to help, they recognize that you are new to this too.
Yeah.
Um, and they just want to give you the advice that they either didn't get or that they learned through experience and their wisdom, which I feel like you can just take with a grain of salt and, take
Hmm.
what serves you in that moment and what you need and leave what isn't going to. And that's like the best advice I can take is like, or say is if somebody's giving you advice, it's like take what you need and leave what you don't. There's no
Hmm.
need to argue about it or
Hmm.
offend someone in saying like, that's not what I like. I mean, unless it's someone very close to you and you feel the need to kind of express like, okay, yeah, like that's something I've tried before, it doesn't work, or kind of engage in that conversation, but there's no need
Hmm.
to kind of be combative in that sense because it's just going to
Yeah.
get you a little bit more frustrated. And
Hmm.
as you said, it's like a heightened emotional state already. You're already dealing with a baby who's crying, or you're not sure what they need, and then you have all these opinions kind of thrown at you. So it's just managing that is definitely a lot, but I think in those moments, yeah, you start to learn how to trust your own instincts because you start to learn the cues of your baby, and that's where that post that you read, that is something that I was feeling, right? Like all these people are telling you everything, and I was just over consuming. I was like on the internet at like 3 a.m. googling like, why is my baby doing this? Why is my baby grunting? Like, should they be doing that? And it's like, okay, they're babies, like they do that, and it's fine, and you're gonna learn what they need over time, and don't stress about it so much where you have to have this level of control. So it comes with time. I'd say it just takes some time.
I think that's a very important thing to mention here is that being a new mom in this day and age right now is actually very difficult to navigate all those things. You have older generations that are
Mm-hmm.
telling you that this is what worked with you when you were a kid 30, 40 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
And they're not taking in consideration that times have changed, technology have changed, the tools that we're using now are different from the tools they were using then, and the knowledge that we have at our fingertips, right? So there is that. And then there is the technology itself and the information that are at our fingertips. You said over consuming, and that is a perfect word.
Mm-hmm.
I I would say that that's a big problem right now in new moms, thinking that they're gonna find the answers by Googling it or whatever it is, or reading that book. What
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give them? What's coming to you?
I think I think there's an element of yes, seeking that validation and that confirmation in something that you think to be true, right? So it's one thing to kind of see how things are going and feel a certain way. Like, I don't know, just giving an example, right? Like you feel like you need to check in on your baby's hearing or something like that. Something is giving you a sense like, yeah, like they're not responsive to this or that, or like what? I think I'm getting this like sense that this is something that I need to look into.
Mhm.
Look into it, research it if it makes you feel better, get that validation that you need, go see the doctor, book the appointment, that sort of thing, right? But I think there's always like this internal nudge that you have to listen to, and it's very quiet sometimes, or it can be overshadowed by, like you said, like the other older generation saying, well, this is how we did it, or go on Instagram and oh my god, your whole feed now is all about babies and sleep training and co-napping and how this is a problem and whatever, and it's like this doesn't, there's so many babies on this earth, this doesn't apply to everybody. So I just think it's, again, like it's tuning into yourself when you're getting overwhelmed. It's like taking a moment, step back, and just like listen to your own intuition. And again, that takes practice and time, right? So I mean, in the work that I do, I've been practicing that pre pre baby, right? Just to listen to myself, making decisions, setting boundaries, how to move through perfectionism in these situations or self-doubt, right? So that all comes into play. And I'm sure we'll talk about this and get into it a little bit further in terms of what you need to look at, like pre and post, and how it all comes into play when parenting and kind of taking advice from people as well.
Well, now that you've mentioned your NLP work, I think let's dive into that and we'll come back to motherhood and all things crazy. Let,
Yeah.
let's talk about the work that you do, the NLP. And there are some people out there who don't know what that means. So if you can give a brief explanation of what that is first, and then we can continue talking about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, just saying all the things about like perfectionism and belief systems and all of that. So basically, I'm a master mindset coach, but I'm also certified in what we call NLP, or neuro linguistic programming, along with some other modalities around like success coaching and, specializing in timeline techniques and nervous system regulation. All of it comes kind of hand in hand when we're looking at neuro linguistic programming, which is kind of like this umbrella that houses all of these techniques and modalities that can help support you through any area of life. But basically, I'm supporting my clients right now with their nervous system, neutralizing stress, creating balance and ease without the burnout. And so NLP is often described as like the user's manual of the subconscious mind, which, sounds fun and fancy, but basically it helps people understand their thoughts, their language, their behavior, and how it's all connected. And more importantly, how to actually shift the patterns that you have to create the desired outcomes that you want in a specific area of life. So whether that's motherhood or business or family, relationships, communication, whatever it may be, at its core, like NLP is built on the idea that we all run these internal programs that are made up of our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, our habits. And so most of these operate beneath the surface, or like the conscious awareness. And so these programs actually shape how we perceive the world, how we communicate, how we respond to different situations. So the power of NLP is basically like practical techniques to offer the ability to identify what you're struggling with and then rewire and optimize any of these programs that are running on kind of an autopilot.
So what does it look like? Someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to join your program." What does it look like? Where do we begin?
For someone who's coming to work with me for the first time, we're going to take a look at your programming, the things that have shaped who you are. Much of the time that starts with some questioning, obviously going into kind of an introduction of who you are, what your belief systems are in terms of like just having conversations. It's just me asking you questions about, what you've experienced as a child, what you've experienced in adulthood, where you're struggling, what you think you're really good at, all these questions that are kind of pulling information so that I can get a better sense of who you are. And that's a really great start because I'm specialized in NLP, I can actually pick up on your patterns in terms of the way that you speak. So like your tonality, your language, and all of this comes into play with like linguistics, communication, how you take in information, how you perceive information, how you share that information with other people, what you find important and how that comes across, right, in conversation. So many things come from just questioning. So questioning is a large part of it. But in terms of the actual transformation, once I've kind of collected all of that information from you in terms of just getting to know you as a person, a human being, we're then going to kind of deep dive into some different techniques.
A brief stop at a station. If you have a story to share and feel called to tell it, if you want to share your expertise on this show, please send an email to guest@healingtrain.ca. To join me on a journey of healing and recovery, connect with me. This show is proudly sponsored by Say It Out Loud GG, led by the inspiring Judith Diaz, an avid change maker and passionate advocate for speaking up and raising awareness. The Healing Train podcast is honored to have her support. Now let's get back to the show.
For example, there's something we call anchoring. Anchoring involves like associating a specific physical action with a desired emotional state. So when you, for example, and there's a technique to kind of do this, but I won't go fully into it, but it's like if you tap on your knuckle or something, that elicits confidence in your body. And so when you are in a situation where you're public speaking and you need to access that confidence that you once had in a situation previous to this, you can just tap on that knuckle and kind of feel that tingly feeling that we kind of went through together using that technique. And that confidence is brought back to the surface. It's like almost like remembering coming home to yourself in that. Now, that's just one technique called anchoring. There's something else we call parts integration. This is a big one with many of my clients. Basically, it's a technique that works when someone's feeling internally conflicted. And I mean, when are we not feeling internally conflicted about decisions that we're making or circumstances that we have going in our life? So you might say, like, part of me, if this was relating back to kind of motherhood, part of me wants my business to freaking explode. I want to make, X amount of dollars per month. I want things to be so successful in terms of my business. And part of me also wants to have a baby and wants to have that presence, that feeling of family life being a priority, right? So there's two pieces of you within yourself that are in conflict. And so we can actually look at those two pieces, and through, again, a series of questioning and the techniques that are involved with NLP, we kind of bring those two parts together by uncovering their positive intentions and aligning them. Okay. So this is really great for anything like that, where you feel conflicted. We have things like reframing. That's pretty self-explanatory in terms of just wanting to shift the meaning of something, right? You've experienced something negative in your past. It's influencing the way that you behave or the way that you operate currently, and you just want to shift that. So we can go into kind of reframing. And then another big one, I'll just touch on this last one. There's so many things under the umbrella of NLP, but timeline techniques. So this is actually working to guide clients to revisit past experiences, often from a subconscious lens. And this is kind of offhand here, but I know people usually will ask, well, what's the difference between coaching with you and like going to see a therapist? And I will say that normally a therapist will go back into the past in terms of asking you questioning in that scenario, like really get you into this heightened state of emotions and feeling all the things you felt when you were in that state. Timeline therapy actually takes you back on your timeline to see and revisit kind of that situation, but not in it. It's more of from the lens of your subconscious and how you were feeling and how you can actually release unresolved emotions or emotions that you didn't even know were there, or limiting beliefs that were actually formed earlier in life. So a client may actually like neutralize those emotional charges around a childhood event or an event in the womb or an event that happened 5 years ago that maybe caused like fear or rejection or self-doubt or perfectionism or something that's now coming up in the future. So I just want to mention that. I mean, obviously no shade against therapists, and I think it's important to kind of speak to someone on that element too. But usually people ask me like, well, what's the point in seeing you, or how are you different? And that's like one key element in terms of NLP. It's being able to regulate those emotions in a different way than just that singular talk therapy, where we're actually using the techniques to move you through things and elicit change for the future. Honestly, NLP in a nutshell is like built on people modeling success and excelling in areas, kind of goes into identifying the beliefs, the strategies, behaviors of successful people, and how we can, create those successes ourselves and outcomes ourselves.
Thank you for this definition. I don't know, this was a definition.
It's a lot. It's
whatever
a lot.
that, but whatever that was, I was like listening, and my brain was going,
Yeah.
I do want to bring up an example. I didn't want to cut you off when you were talking, but I was like, okay, I'm making a mental note of this for reframing. I have an example to give.
Yeah. I would love it.
That I personally experienced. I mean, it may be silly, but anyways, it's no secret that I've been in a toxic relationship, or more than one, let's say, but the most recent one that really like got me down to my knees. Most of us in relationships go out in places and go to restaurants, we go to, I don't know, malls, wherever, right? So during the relationship, you associate certain places with the person you're with, right? So there was this restaurant that I enjoyed going to with that toxic partner. And for the longest time, I would avoid it. Not only that I would avoid it, I would get triggered when I passed by it. or when I
Okay.
saw the name, it did something to me
Mm-hmm.
physically in my body, right?
Yeah.
And one day I said, enough is enough. I'm taking charge of this now. So I decided, let's go have a meal at that restaurant. And now I am changing my experience of that restaurant. Instead of it being that restaurant with him,
Mm-hmm.
now it's a restaurant I enjoy going to. I enjoy the cuisine. I enjoy whatever, right? The food.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna let this stop me.
That's so
And
powerful.
and now I've gone to the same place more than once. And I can tell you a lot of times I don't even remember that originally it was with that person. It's
Right.
forgotten. It's forgotten. I'm not saying it never comes up. It may come to my mind, especially if it's the exact
Mm-hmm.
same location, right? If it's a franchise, let's say, and
Right.
that was in my case, it was a franchise. So it's in different places. So I can go to different locations. But if I were to go to that same location, even sit at the same table,
Yeah.
of course there's work that needs to be done, but I'm like, I'm overcoming this, I'm reframing this. So anyway, I
Mm-hmm.
went on a tangent there, but I wanted to explain the how deep the work goes when we're doing
Yeah.
this type of healing.
Yeah. And again, like you said, this might seem like something stupid or silly or small or whatever, but it's like those are the small things that all add up, right?
Mm.
Like those little moments of being able to overcome those situations
Yeah.
where when you do it enough, it's like you will start to only see in that kind of with that lens, right? And it's similar to you. It seems silly when, you know, I had situations where in the past where there's like people and they have like road rage and they're like, you know, giving you the finger or cutting you off. And now someone cuts me off and I'm like, you know what? That person's probably in such a rush. Like, what if I almost make excuses for them that it's okay. Not that, I mean, that's not okay either. You don't want
I
to go
know.
like too far to the other end, but
Mhm.
if it makes you feel better in order to move through it and help neutralize those emotions that you once had and those triggers. And again, not to say that it won't always, it'll come up from time to time, but you just
Mhm.
become better at moving through it and reframing the situation. So now I'm like, you know what, that person's probably like late to picking up their son from, you know, daycare or something. Like it's rush hour, like, yeah, I'm just gonna let it go. Or, you know, that person didn't mean, they're having a bad day. Like give people the benefit of the doubt. And so in those situations I can look at it differently, which
Mhm.
changes your whole emotional state. Which,
Mhm.
why let something have power over you for longer than it needs to?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes, totally. Totally. Let's come back to our discussion about motherhood. New mothers, we are somewhat conditioned by our own upbringing. You mentioned that in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we find ourselves without realizing following in the same footsteps as our own mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? Although we have started to learn and understand that it wasn't the best, right? And
Yeah.
you want to do differently by your child. How do you handle? It's a very tough one. I don't even know if you have the answer for this. But how do you handle your own mother? Because we've talked about family members and other people, but let's get right down to it, okay?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
own mother who comes and tells you you should do it like this, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't see eye to eye at all because you have evolved, you see things differently, a huge generation gap, and you don't want to upset her, but at the same time you got to look out for you and for your baby. Can you
Hmm.
can you give us something there?
It's a hard one. That is a very difficult one. And I will say I'm really like blessed in the sense that my mother doesn't put her, you know, thoughts and ways on me in the way that some mothers likely do to their children, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, my mom still has her opinions and will mention things or send me things or send me videos and that sort of thing and say, oh, look at this. And I'm grateful for that, but I will set my boundaries, right? Like I will say like, oh, that's not something that we are doing, you know, or yeah, you know what, I've looked into that and that's not really something that I plan to do. Oh yeah, I looked into that and that is something that actually really works. Like that is something I'm going to try, right? But I think I'm always open in that communication of it could be really difficult to have to say like, please stop sharing these things with me that don't really, it's not something that, that don't resonate. And it's going to make the person angry on it. And it's happened before where I've, said something and I said, just, you know what, don't bother sending me those because I don't actually believe in that, or I don't watch them. I literally have said I don't watch these videos because that's not something that I think is important. And it's hard because that person is obviously hurt, or they think that you don't find what they have to say important or valuable, and that is difficult. But the other thing is what I've learned is that you don't want to give people advice when they were not asking for it, and that's really hard for some people to do, right? Like, wait till somebody asks, or ask someone, is this something that you would be interested in learning more about? And if they say yes, then share that information, because that's kind of what I do with my friends. Like, this is something that I'm trying. If you guys want to hear more about it, or like if you'd like resources on this, I can share them with you. It's giving that invitation and seeing how receptive people are, because if you are giving information that is not needed, or it's ignored by that person, then you feel the sense of resentment or like hurt by it. So I'll say that obviously applies with your own mother and your own parents, right? Is that you take things with a grain of salt. You're thankful. You say, I appreciate you looking out for the baby. We're going on a different route here. We're doing things a little bit differently. So I think there's there's that connection that needs to be made in terms of like, this is also my family. We're going to operate in this way. We're going to make different decisions than you did, because you did the best you could with the resources you had back when you were raising a child. And because you did something a certain way doesn't mean it was the right way. It doesn't mean it was the wrong way. It was just the way that you did it at the time, because that's what worked for you and your family. So I think when you're open to that explanation and sharing with somebody, like, there is a lot of information that's being consumed, and so I just need a moment to see how I'm going to move through this on my own. People have a little bit more respect in that sense, but the mother-in-law dynamic can sometimes be a very difficult one to navigate. And I think also pre-pregnancy, pre-baby, maybe those are some boundaries that you need to set kind of ahead of time as well. Yeah.
I like how you said we. So you are making it clear that you're not in this alone. You have a partner that also has a say, and you're bringing him or her, whoever is discussing this with their parent, into the conversation and saying, me and so, we prefer to do it this way, right? You are taking ownership to the way you want to parent with your partner and making that understandable to the person that's giving you that advice. No disrespect here, just that we are on a different page. We like to do things in this way, but thank you. So it's the communication, it's the setting of the boundaries, it's the understanding where they're coming from, it's understanding that there is a generational gap and it's normal that this will happen, and not to get defensive.
No, exactly.
Here, not to get defensive, not to attack either and say, well, you did this to me, and that's not going to help either. So let's try to use healthy communication, and this is where NLP comes in. So if you are a new mom and you are struggling with this, you can reach out to Brittany and she'll help you with some tools. Reframe, anchor, was it something timeline? I forgot, but I tried to remember everything that you said. But yeah, I mean, there are different tools, and of course, read online and try to educate yourself how to handle, not just how to handle your new baby, how do you handle your parent? You can write that in too, and it'll tell you some tips and tools.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's things that, like, I think we learn too, that we teach our parents now as we get older and as we have families ourselves. Like, there are a lot of things that I have mentioned to my parents about the way that we did things when we were younger, and I was like, I don't think that actually worked well. And they were like, you know what, maybe we could have done things a bit differently, but at the time, like, that's what we said or we did, and we didn't really realize that it was harming you in that way. And so now, when you have that open relationship, you can say, well, yeah, like, it did actually affect me in this way. Like, I did feel abandoned when you did that, or I did feel like I wasn't heard or seen or understood in the same way. And so the more open you can be in those situations, the like easier it is to heal through those generational traumas and kind of close the book, and so that it doesn't affect the next generation, to come. Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I'm very happy that you are experiencing this. But Brittany, let's be honest. A lot of times, these are not the type of relationships between parents and the children who are having babies. Okay.
No.
There's a lot of situations where the parent are so, like the older generation is so stubborn and will
Yeah.
not budge. And it's getting angry if you don't do things the way they tell you. And I think this is when you need to learn what you said earlier, set the boundary
Yeah.
kindly, but firmly. If you have,
There are bigger boundaries to be set when you're in situations like that, and
yeah,
it's unfortunate because they are your family. You do want them
yeah,
around you. You want them to see their grandchildren. You want the perspective. You want all of these things, but at the end of the day, you also sometimes have to dissociate yourself from those situations,
hmm,
or have time constraints or whatever it is, and kind of pick up and read us on your own energy. That if you're leaving a conversation feeling depleted and it's with your own mother,
mm,
it needs to be regulated in terms of the boundary that needs to be set. And so if you need to do that, it needs to be done.
hmm,
It doesn't matter whether it's family. I still believe that, like, if it's something that is bothering you and causing you stress, and I do have clients that really struggle with the parental relationships, and so there is a level of distancing that has to happen, and a level of knowing how much time and energy you can spend with that person, or have it, like, be in their
the
presence.
grandchild, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can kind of set the boundaries there and start kind of small, and then inch by inch it starts to get more comfortable. The more you set boundaries, the more comfortable it gets in terms of saying no and not feeling guilty about something, or not thinking they're going to perceive you in a specific way, right? And again, it doesn't have to be done in a negative, like really
Mm,
terrible manner. It can
mm,
still be done in a kind and firm way.
hmm, hmm. Well, this brings me to the next thing, which is support from the
Mm-hmm.
outside circle, right? And usually, your parents and the in-laws are your biggest supporters to
Mm.
watch your baby, your child, so it can give you some time to breathe, right? Or have a date night with your hubby, because as you said, it's one of the biggest challenges that new moms experience, right? So,
Exactly.
having said that, if the parent or the in-laws' ways of handling the grandchild can be so, I don't know what the word to use here, but let's say negative
Mm-hmm.
on the grandchild. Let's just say they yell at the
Mm-hmm.
grandchild, or they are used to like giving a little slap on the hands or what on the bum or whatever, right? There are ways of
Yeah.
handling things. And you're like, no, we're not doing that. But yet they are your support system. So now what do? You cannot leave
Mm.
your child with them, and you almost have to give up that support because it doesn't resonate, because they're not able to respect your
Yeah.
wishes and your boundaries of your parenting style with you and your partner. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
tough one. Do you want to talk about that?
That is really difficult. I think there's a level of again, communication that needs to be happen, but sometimes that communication, it falls short in terms of on deaf ears, right? Like, you may be saying that this is how it needs to be done, or this is how the routine is, or this is how the scheduling has, or this is how
Yeah.
he eats, or this is when he has to go to sleep, and like, they're just not, they're like, no, it's fine, like, or she's fine, they're gonna be, or the, oh, you don't have screen time, it's fine, they're just gonna watch like an hour of TV, it's not gonna be a big deal, we can't like, it's like, no, that's not what, those are not the boundaries that I have set at home. And so it's no different when they come. Yes, okay, you might be a little lenient with certain things, but there's certain things that you're very firm on. Again, I think that comes down to your values and your belief system. And so maybe it's approaching the conversation from that lens with your parents to say, hey guys, like, I appreciate the support. I don't want to have to remove this element of the bonding that's happening, because that's really important to me, the family, and having your help as well. Like, I benefit from that, but I also benefit from you being able to spend time with your grandchild.
Hmm.
But it's like giving that warning of, if this continues to happen, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do that. And I don't want to, but it is something that needs to
Mm,
be done. So it's like the communicating, it's like the warning, and maybe the warning has to happen a couple times, or maybe
mm,
there has to be something that's done. And I always say that the boundaries have to exist where you are doing something that lends into the boundary being accomplished, right? Like, you can't leave it up to them,
mm,
in the sense of, if you say, okay, well, if little Tommy comes over and, he's having screen time at your house and he comes home and he's having temper tantrums because he wants to watch the TV at home, that is a direct consequence of being at your home and you like evading that boundary with me that I've set kind of for that scheduling. And so this is now causing an issue. And so I am going to have to remove him from your home. That's you taking initiative and doing something to remove your child from that situation. It's not relying on them to do something differently, right? So again, a boundary is something that where you were actually doing something to stop that situation from happening, or you're giving a specific outcome or whatever it is. So, and I think a lot of the time people put boundaries in other people's hands in terms of like, they're a little bit wishy-washy. Yeah. So you do need to be stern in that sense.
And understanding that you are responsible for your child right now, their safety, their well-being, eliminating any traumatic experience that they may have just because of spending time with someone that isn't respecting what you have listed out, right? So you're looking, and that's parenting. There's part of parenting right there that didn't come with the manual that we were talking about earlier, right?
Exactly.
So you're creating the manual as you're going.
You're really like,
you're writing the script.
Yeah, you are flying the plane literally as it's being built in this situation, because nothing comes, parenthood does not absolutely come with manual. Yeah, you can look up all sorts of things, but your situation might be completely different from the next person.
You mentioned at the beginning is that you thought that you would not have any time for yourself at all. You discovered that that's not true. Let's talk about this self-care. Self-care for new moms specifically, and later on as the child gets older, because it doesn't end, right? Self-care is always going to be needed. And let's explain, what does it really mean by self-care for a mom? It doesn't necessarily mean, and I'm just going to say this, it doesn't necessarily mean you get a day at the spa. That's not necessarily what self-care is. It could just be as simple as taking a breather.
A good night's rest is self-care. Okay. And I trust me, a lot of moms in the beginning, that is something that we literally long for, because you might, if you're nursing or whatever it is, or getting up to make the bottles and whatnot, you may be getting interrupted sleep of like 3 to 4 hours for an entire night. Does that change? Absolutely. That's not all the time. So that's the one thing I like to remind, myself and new moms of, is like, this is not a death sentence. This is not going to be happening all the time. This is a temporary thing. But yeah, self-care looks completely different to every person. It definitely isn't a spot. Maybe for some it is a spot day, and maybe for others it's just getting a good night's rest, or maybe it's even self-care in the sense of just being able to talk to somebody, to say, I'm feeling isolated, I feel lonely, I need to have a day out of just interacting with adults and having regular conversation, socializing. And that's self-care, because mentally and emotionally you are getting a read on yourself and you're able to go and do something that's actually going to change that. And it's an emotional roller coaster, right? A hormonal emotional roller coaster, especially in those first few months. So rest, time to socialize, have those adult conversations, is really important. And from the beginning, it may also mean like planning a day or two out during the week, where you go grab a coffee, you go for a walk, you book a massage, or you have a brunch date, whatever it looks like for you. It's just those pockets of peace. That's what I call them. It's like, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 2 hours, a half day. But it's like those pockets of peace that you need to reset and refuel, so that you can come back and actually be pouring from a full cup. And the other thing is just even leaning on your support system in terms of like the community of women who also have children and understand where you're coming from, having that open dialogue with them. So that's, self-care. And I'll say even self-care for me too. I think in the first few months, probably the first 2 months, I don't even think I like changed into my pajamas. Like I would be literally wake up in my pajamas, shower at the end of the night, put on pajamas for the night, get up. And I was like, this is crazy. Like I don't feel like myself, right? I'm like losing my identity in terms of getting up. So even self-care for me was just getting up in the morning. The first nap of the day, I knew I had a few minutes. So I would go get ready, do my hair, put on some makeup, put on some clothes that just made me feel comfortable and like confident for the rest to handle the rest of the day. Even just making yourself look good and can help you feel good.
Would you say the health of your relationship with yourself is very much influenced by how much your partner is supporting you in this parenting?
Absolutely. I mean, it has a huge influence. The one thing that actually we both talked about is the fact that we have such an appreciation for the single parent because they don't have that same support. I mean, some of them do, but a lot of them don't have any support as another partner or even family, or families far away, or they're working 3 jobs and then coming home and doing a full-time job of taking care of a child, right? And it's exhausting. And so each of us, me being home with the baby and really for these last few months, and then only now being like, okay, to like relieve this feeling of like wanting my identity back in terms of my business, like that's something I'm excited about and getting back into the work element. And then my partner just being like fully committed to work financially for the family, but then also, of course, supporting in the ways that he can when he's home. It's hard. It requires a lot of compromise and sacrifice between the two of you. It requires even time alone, it gets disrupted in that sense. You don't have much of that, or you're so exhausted. Like I'm touched out. Like I'm like, I've been nursing all day. This child has been on me all day, which I'm totally fine with, but I'm like, I don't really want to be touched right now. Like, but it's expressing those things, right? And having that open dialogue and even support. I had to say to him, at one point, like, I think in the first 8 weeks, I was kind of doing everything. And I was like, this is not manageable. And not because he didn't want to help, but because we as women put that pressure on ourselves. Like, okay, we nurse, we get up in the morning or in the night, we get up in the morning, we do the things, we give them a bath, we put them to bed. And I'm like, if I'm putting this child to bed every single night and not having a second to myself, I'm literally going to lose it. I'm going to have a mental breakdown. And so I had to have that conversation to say, I need your help. I need more of your help. And he's like, well, what do you need me to do? And I'm like, bath time and bedtime, like a couple nights a week, or we need to shift off, or we need to find a compromise, or we need to find a way. And so like we ended up having weeks where like we each get a night off. And we go back and forth in terms of putting him to bed and getting bath and all of that based on our schedules. And he's working as well, so I'm not I realize that he needs his rest and things like that too to function during the day, but it's not seeing one person's role as superior than another. And it's also helping and supporting. So it plays a huge factor into like your happiness and your ability to have a family dynamic that actually works and flourishes.
I heard a few words in this conversation today, which is communication is a big one. The ability to express yourself, the setting of the boundaries, the being understanding, the being compassionate, the trusting your intuition. I'm just trying to summarize all the little nuggets that we discussed because, like I said in the beginning, this is a very, very, very important subject, motherhood. Like, my God, we need to let women know that they can give themselves grace, that they are always doing the best that they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to do everything perfect. And that it's okay if you miss something, misjudge, don't react in the correct timing. Right? I remember one time I was babysitting my niece and I felt guilty for weeks because I didn't manage to catch her head when she was about to fall from the couch. And I was like beating myself up, but it was too fast.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch it. And bam, and then of course she cried. Everything, she was okay afterwards, but just when she was crying, I felt responsible.
I
I
know.
took that responsibility so seriously, like, oh my God, as if I did this to her. I didn't. It was an accident.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm an auntie and, experiencing this. Imagine when you're a mom. I'm sure it happens where they fall down, they whatever, something happens, right? They spill something and you keep beating yourself up for not catching it in time. You can't. You're not superwoman, although we'd like to feel like we're superwomen, but you're not, and it's okay.
Yeah. It's more of the learning, right? It's like how you react in that moment. And I think also in the sense of NLP and using all the techniques that I have, it's it's being able to react differently each time something like that happens because you've learned, okay, this does happen and mistakes happen, or this is not something that's in my control, or maybe, I am not superhuman and I'm not superwoman and I don't have eyes in the back of my head and I missed that for a second, and it's not the end of the world. Okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to move forward from it. It's funny that you mentioned that thing happening. We used to put James on our ottoman in the family room to change his, like, put the change padded down and then change him on there.
Right.
And the other day, right when he started to roll and whatnot, I actually had a laundry basket next to the ottoman, thankfully. But he started to roll and whatnot, and I literally looked away for a second to go grab his a new pack of wipes, and he just rolled into the
Into
basket.
the
And I'm like,
basket.
oh my God. I was like, thank God the basket was there, because he would have just gone. I mean, it wouldn't, there's a carpet, it's
Yeah.
okay, but like it's a 4-month-old, 5-month-old rolling onto the floor from probably a decent height. It's not
Yeah.
huge, but I was like, oh my God. And what did I learn from that situation is like, okay, you know what? We are not going to leave him unattended with my eyes off of him just for split instant to do that sort of thing. We put him down on the floor, go grab the thing. And so now you just operate differently. Whatever you learn from that situation, right? But there's no sense of carrying that guilt. But I love that example that you shared.
Oh, oh my goodness. We've talked about so many great things and our conversation can go on and on, but is there anything that you want to leave our audience with today? I know we discussed so many things already, but if there's any last words that you want to say.
Yeah, I think, a lot of the times we feel like we're losing ourselves when we go into motherhood. There's a sense of like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to get back to who I was, or like I'm trying to like find like my old identity, or get that back. And so what I've realized, at least, is like it's not a bad thing to lose parts of yourself that or grieve old parts of yourself that once existed and no longer exist. That's okay. It's like you're upgrading, you're changing, you're becoming more of who you're actually meant to be through motherhood. And so we really can't grow or up level unless we kind of peel back some of those layers that exist to expose the new layers that actually are meant to be seen. Like you said as well, we need to give ourselves a lot more grace than we do. But I think that identity piece is huge. Like, it's okay for duality to exist. That's the biggest thing. You can be so grateful to be spending time with your baby and be on maternity leave and have those moments and be present. But you can also at the same time be fully exhausted and burnt out. And that's okay. Both of those things can exist in the same moment. So there is that duality of motherhood that exists in a lot of different elements. And that is okay. That's I think the biggest takeaway that I've had that I want to share with anybody that's listening today.
I love that. I really love that. Brittany, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to work with you? What is the best way to reach you? I mean, I'm going to put all your information in the show notes, but if you want to share.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Be Free Mindset. That is the name of my business as well. Through Instagram, there's some links that you can access there in my bio that will take you into ways to work with me. But there is my website as well, www.befreemindset.com. There's my Facebook page, again, Be Free Mindset. That community is also open. Through email, befreemindset@gmail.com. If this resonated with you, or if you want to chat further, you can reach out in that way as well. Instagram's probably the best place to just connect with me initially, kind of see what I'm all about, because I know, sometimes people just want to get a sense of who you are. I mean, you read one of the quotes from my Instagram post. I do share a lot of like personal things on there as well. So that is a really good space to start, and then connect there, and we can talk through if you'd like to work together one-to-one or join for an NLP breakthrough session. I do have those as well, which are very powerful. So that would probably be the best spot.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for sharing everything from your heart and letting new moms out there know that they're doing the best that they can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rania.
If this was the first time we met, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button
so you can continue going on the train ride with me. Every episode on this podcast is different. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's with a special guest. The conversations we have on this show are very necessary. So make sure you tune in. And until next episode, keep on healing you.